I still remember the sound of the door. Not the slam. Not the argument. The click. That soft, final sound that told me something had ended quietly, without drama, without mercy. I stood in the hallway holding a mug of coffee that had already gone cold, watching the space where my wife had stood just seconds earlier. The air still carried her perfume. Lavender. The same scent she wore on our wedding day. The same scent that used to mean home. But that morning, it meant goodbye. Daniel, she had said, her voice trembling but determined. I can't do this anymore. I didn't ask what she couldn't do. I already knew. The woman I loved chose someone else. Her name was Emily. We had been married for 11 years. Not the fairy tale kind of marriage people post online, no luxury vacations, no constant laughter, but the real kind. The kind built on grocery lists, late bills, quiet dinners, and falling asleep on the couch together after exhausting days. We had 2 children. A modest house. A life that wasn't flashy, but it was ours. Or so I thought. The affair didn't explode into my life like a bomb. It seeped in like poison. Late nights. Hidden smiles at her phone. A distance in her eyes I couldn't reach no matter how close I stood. When I finally asked, she didn't deny it. I didn't plan it, she said, crying. It just happened. It's amazing how often destruction arrives wrapped in the words "it just happened." The day she left. She packed 1 suitcase. Just 1. That hurt more than if she'd taken everything. It meant she believed this was temporary. That I was a safety net. A place to return when things got uncomfortable. I need to find myself, she said. She didn't look at me when she said it. She didn't look at the children either. They were still asleep. I didn't stop her. I didn't beg. Not because I didn't love her, but because I loved myself enough not to fight for someone who had already chosen to walk away. When the door clicked shut, I sat on the floor and cried like a man who had lost his future. The silence after betrayal. The house changed after she left. Not physically. Emotionally. Every room echoed. The kids asked questions I couldn't answer. Is mommy coming back? Did we do something wrong? Why doesn't she call? I learned how to smile while my chest felt like it was collapsing. I learned how to cook dinner with shaking hands. How to tuck them into bed while swallowing tears. How to cry in the shower so no one would hear. At night, I stared at the ceiling replaying memories like torture. Her laugh. Her warmth. Her hand in mine. And then I imagined her with him. That thought nearly destroyed me. Who he was. I never met him. Didn't need to. I knew the type. Confident. Exciting. Full of promises that only sounded real because they had never been tested. He didn't have to deal with sick kids or unpaid bills. He didn't have to fix leaky faucets or broken dreams. He only had to be new. And new always feels better. Until it doesn't. How I survived without her. Weeks turned into months. Emily sent messages sometimes. Short. Careful. Guilt-coated. How are the kids? I hope you're okay. Tell them I love them. I responded politely. Briefly. Not cold. Not warm. Neutral. Because healing doesn't come from hatred. It comes from boundaries. I started waking up earlier. Going for walks. Cooking healthier meals. Not to prove anything. But because pain demands somewhere to go. Or it destroys you from the inside. Slowly, the fog lifted. I wasn't happy. But I was standing. And sometimes, that's enough. The truth about affairs. People think affairs are about passion. They're not. They're about escape. And escapes always end. The call I didn't expect. It was a rainy Thursday evening. The kids were doing homework. The house was quiet. My phone rang. Unknown number. Something in my chest tightened before I answered. Daniel, her voice whispered. Emily. She sounded different. Smaller. Broken. Can we talk? She asked. Closed my eyes. I already knew why she was calling. Affairs don't collapse overnight. They crumble slowly under the weight of reality. Bills. Expectations. True character. And when the fantasy dies, people look for the last place they felt safe. She was coming back. I made a mistake, she said, crying. I lost everything. I didn't interrupt. I listened. Because sometimes silence is the most powerful response. He's not who I thought he was, she admitted. He cheated. He lied. He left. The irony didn't escape me. She sobbed harder. I want to come home. Home. That word used to belong to both of us. Now, it belonged to me. I'll be there tomorrow, she said. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I simply replied. We'll talk. And when the call ended, I stood in the quiet house, no longer afraid, no longer broken. Just ready. What she didn't know. She thought she was returning to the man she left. The man who begged with his eyes. The man who would do anything to keep his family together. But that man didn't exist anymore. Pain had changed me. Not into someone bitter. Into someone clear. And tomorrow, she was going to meet him. Key. The knock on the door was hesitant. Not confident. Not entitled. It was the knock of someone who already knew they might not be welcome. I stood still for a moment, my hand resting on the doorframe. My heart wasn't racing. That surprised me. I had imagined this moment 100 times, anger, shouting, tears, but all I felt now was calm. A quiet, steady calm. I opened the door. Emily stood there with a small suitcase. The same one. Her hair was pulled back carelessly, her eyes swollen and red. She looked thinner. Fragile. Like someone life had finally stopped being gentle with. For a second, she just stared at me. As if she expected to see the man she left. She didn't. The silence between us. Hi, she whispered. Hi, I replied. That was it. No accusations. No bitterness. Just two people standing on opposite sides of a line she had crossed alone. She stepped inside slowly, like the house might reject her. Her eyes moved around the living room. The framed photos, the kids' drawings on the fridge, the small changes I had made. You changed the couch, she said softly. I had to, I answered. The old one was falling apart. She nodded, swallowing hard. The truth was, I had been the one falling apart. And I rebuilt myself piece by piece. She expected anger. We sat across from each other. Her hands trembled in her lap. I'm so sorry, she said quickly, words spilling out like she was afraid I'd stop her. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve another chance. But I made a mistake, Daniel. I swear I did. I looked at her carefully. She wasn't lying. But regret and love are not the same thing. I lost everything, she continued, tears streaming now. He wasn't who he pretended to be. He lied. He cheated. I felt invisible. Alone. She laughed bitterly. I guess that's karma, right? I didn't smile. Karma had nothing to do with this. Choices did. The question she was afraid to ask. She finally looked up at me. Her voice broke. Can we try again? There it was. The question she had rehearsed. The hope she had carried back with her. The assumption that I had been waiting in pieces for her return. I leaned back in my chair. And for the first time since she arrived, I spoke honestly. My response stopped her in her tracks. I forgive you. Her eyes widened. She exhaled sharply, relief flooding her face. But I wasn't finished. I forgive you, I repeated calmly, because carrying anger would only hurt me. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back. Her smile faded. I don't understand, she whispered. I know, I said gently. You never really did. She shook her head, panic creeping in. Daniel, please. I know I messed up, but we have history. A family. 11 years. That I didn't walk away from, I said quietly. The words landed softly. But they landed hard. The truth she couldn't escape. I loved you, I continued. I loved you enough to stay faithful when things were boring. Enough to choose you when life got heavy. Enough to fight for us even when you stopped. Her shoulders collapsed. But while you were chasing excitement, I said, I was learning how to survive without you. She covered her mouth, sobbing. I waited for you, she cried. I thought you'd fight for me. I nodded slowly. I did, I said. Until you made it clear I was fighting alone. Silence filled the room. The kids' laughter echoed faintly from their bedroom, unaware of the emotional earthquake happening just a few feet away. Kindness without weakness. I don't hate you, I said softly. And I don't wish you pain. But I also won't teach our children that love means accepting betrayal. She looked up at me then. Really looked. And for the first time, she understood. This wasn't punishment. This was self-respect. I hope you heal, I added. I hope you forgive yourself. But this chapter, it ended the day you chose someone else. She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. I lost you, she whispered. Yes, I replied. You did. The moment of realization. She stood up shakily. I thought you'd be angry, she said. I thought you'd scream. I smiled sadly. I did all my screaming alone, I said. You just weren't here to hear it. She reached for her suitcase. At the door, she turned back one last time. I never realized how strong you were, she said. I met her eyes. I never realized how strong I'd have to become. After she left, for good. The door closed. This time, it didn't hurt. Because some endings aren't losses. They're releases. I stood there for a moment, not broken, not bitter, just free. Then I walked to my children's room. Daddy, my son asked. Was Mommy here? Yes, I said gently. Is she coming back? I knelt beside him and smiled. She loves you, I said. But sometimes loving someone doesn't mean living with them. They nodded, trusting me the way children do. And I realized something important. I hadn't lost my family. I had protected it. The lesson she learned too late. Emily didn't lose me because her affair failed. She lost me because I learned my worth while she was busy forgetting it. Kindness saved me. Boundaries healed me. Self-respect rebuilt me. And that response. That calm, honest, dignified response. It stopped her in her tracks. Sometimes the strongest response isn't anger. It's knowing when to let go with grace.